Welcome, 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 to Dropping a Morning Log with Jivko. It's a wonderful morning in the neighborhood to drop a little log for you. So what do you say? I say let's do it. So I'll start out by saying that in recent events, I ended up going to my brother's and we happened to see some lights outside on like a little path behind his house, and there ended up being a small search party, it looked like, and there was like police squad cars and dogs and the whole bit. We even went as far as popping on a police scanner app just to check it out. Side story, I honestly didn't even know police scanner apps were illegal. Like, I thought it was an illegal activity to actually be checking in and listening in on police scanners and to even own one. But apparently it's a completely public and legal thing. What was going on at the end was they were looking for a missing person, and it ended up being a 17 or 18-year-old girl that was at high risk for hurting herself. And long story short, they ended up finding her with her wrists cut, and she ended up getting the medical attention she needed in the end, from what we understand. But this is not a new topic of discussion. There's plenty of people these days especially that are going out and hurting themselves because of their frustration with the world or with themselves. There's a lot of young people that are in this situation, and whether it's due to poor parenting or bullying or mental health disorders, whatever it may be. There's a part of me that truly thinks, however, that this is a generational thing. And not that people haven't always had issues and trouble expressing themselves and dealing with their feelings and stuff like that, but I think something that the previous generation had at hand had a benefit of was, a program like Mr. Rogers had brought to the world. Now, when I was little, I saw the program Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood with Mr. Rogers, and I saw it in passing as I flipped through channels, and I always thought, it was like a cheesy, like slow-paced kids show. But that being said, I never gave it a chance when I was a kid. Perhaps it just didn't catch because I wasn't young enough or whatever the case. I never ended up checking it out for a myriad of reasons. It kind of makes me a little sad that I didn't catch it, because everyone that has watched the program and has had a moment to spare to give it a chance, it looks like they've all loved it. From old to young people, all sorts of ages. And just watching the movie, it gives a different perspective on what a TV program can be and what it can provide for people and kids. And the thing is, I'm not a professional on the show now that I've seen the movie, but I certainly get the gist of it, that Mr. Rogers is a wise man. The program passively provides life lessons and ideas for how to cope with a lot of things that people have a hard time dealing with in life. Because life is very fast-paced, and it's only going to get faster as we progress in this technological age. And it's important to be reminded that, you have to slow down and understand things and think things through clearly, and especially your interactions with people and children. And I'm not a child specialist, and I don't pretend to be, but there's a factor of obviousness when it comes to understanding the fact that when a child is growing up, they need to have someone with patience and well-developed means of communicating intent, so the child can understand in a clear, well-structured manner the important things that are there. Maybe I'll make this a two-part log, kind of tying that in with trying to understand a well-mannered means of parenting and teaching a child. I don't know, there's a lot involved, and it's an extremely nuanced subject. There's a lot that I think is not explained or is never really taught to children about how to deal with their feelings. And a parent can only do so much to teach a child, all the elements of life. Being a parent is an extremely hard job, and I'm seeing it from a third person's perspective because I'm not a parent myself at the moment, but one day I really hope to be. And from my understanding, it's already an extremely hard thing to be a human person, to thrive in the environment at the age of, going through your 20s and into your 30s. You're already going through so many different things, but especially in the years after school ends, you really start forming who you are as an individual. And the most important thing, in my opinion, is to reflect back on all those years that you've had in school, to really try to understand and learn from all the life lessons that were taught to you throughout those years, because that is really all you are able to go off of when it comes to, forming yourself as a person. A lot of people these days, now I'm kind of getting off topic here, but I'm just going to touch on this. I think a lot of people really despise their years in school, whether it's due to, being bullied or just not having the best time, with the people around them, or maybe they really had a tough time getting through everyday life, and then somehow it got suddenly better when they didn't have to deal with everyone else around them. But regardless, who you are through those formative years is extremely important, to remember. And all the life struggles and whatever you encountered going through all the years going through school, helped form you into the individual that you are today. I think it's extremely hard and almost impossible to grow yourself to the degree by the time you're mid to late 20s, when people usually start having children nowadays. I was always under the opinion that I would like to work on myself as much as possible before having children, and have to worry about not only working on myself, but also teach another developing adolescent human, the rights and wrongs of life. And I understand that you learn a lot as an individual along the way, but I think it's very important to establish your true values as an individual before you start teaching them to someone else. And unfortunately, I don't think that 20 or even 30 years is the most opportune amount of time to allow for yourself to develop completely into a fully formed, individual. But if you have that mentality, you're going to start kind of running into a bottleneck between getting too old to have children, physically speaking, and completing your full mental development as a human being. So I think, in my personal opinion, the best possible age to have a child of your own is around maybe like early to mid 30s, because up until then, you're still really ironing out all the nuances of your own ideas and your own thoughts about the world and yourself. And I'm not saying that everyone who has children earlier or later is in the wrong. I'm just saying I personally believe that, considering everything, it's hard enough to be a person and to raise your child at an early age, let alone be the perfect person to do everything for your child, including teach them in a well put together manner how they should act and ways to manage their feelings and how to act properly upon them. And it's the hardest to know all of those items if you personally don't know yourself and haven't had time to work on all that yourself. And generally speaking, I think people in the current generation are waiting a little longer to get married and to have children and all this stuff. And I think it's for a positive reason, and it's doing these people good because they're allowing themselves to really think things through a lot longer and churn through the nuances of the thoughts instead of acting more impulsively. And in a world where we live today where attention spans are getting shorter and everyone's becoming a lot more impulsive due to, media and technology and all this stuff, I think there's entirely a place and a market for a more slow-paced show where everything is explained a little more and discussed in detail, such as the program that Mr. Rogers one day brought to the world. I'm just a little sad that there aren't more shows like that where they bring entertainment and a big lesson, that are child and adult friendly all at the same time. But that's not to say that another show such as that is not on the brink of release at any point in time in the near future. I gotta get going here, so take it easy. Later.